Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Stephen Sacker. The recent US-led missile strikes on several military installations in Syria changed precious little in that country's horrific civil war. On the ground, the killing, the displacement and the suffering continue. Regional and global divisions over Syria are as deep as ever. Today, I have a rare interview with a Syrian politician close to the Assad regime. Fares Shehabi is a powerful Aleppo business leader and self-styled independent MP. Is Syria, as we knew it, broken beyond repair? Fares Shehabi in Beirut today. Welcome to Hard Talk.
How are you doing? I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Well, I want to begin by asking you about something I heard you say just a few days ago. After those US-led missile strikes on those military bases in Syria, you described how Syrians came onto the streets of Damascus and indeed Aleppo as well, and you said they were chanting, they were singing, they were feeling victorious. And it is hard for me to understand how Syrians, in the current context of all that's happening in your country, can be celebrating and feeling victorious. Can you explain that to me?
Well, the same feeling you had when Hitler was bombing you in World War II, and you were chanting on the streets with all this destruction and aggression becoming on your head, and you felt victorious, and also you felt like one country, and you kept yourself together in one piece, and that's what we're doing. And when you introduced me, I have one remark about this. I'm not close to any regime. I'm close to a state. I'm close to an army. I'm close to the people who elected me. That's just for a short remark on this one.
No, I respect the fact that you are an independent MP, but I also know the history of you and your family. You've had long relationships with the Assad regime, very friendly relationships, and if one looks back to 2011 onward, you have offered staunch and loyal support to the measures taken by Bashar al-Assad from the very beginning of this conflict.
Exactly, because we were threatened by jihadi terrorism. We've seen in our city Aleppo people from 100 nations. We've seen people from Central Asia. We've seen people from Northern Africa coming through the Turkish border, robbing our factories. We lost like 40,000 factories, destroying our historical sites, targeting our Christian, and other ethnic groups, Armenian groups in my city. Of course, we will ask for our army, which is a secular army, to protect us. And Stephen, let me say something. As I speak to you now, there are 280 Brits on their way from Douma now to Europe. They're going back to England. You know, when they were getting on the buses, we collected the information of 280 British passports among the jihadis with the Nusra Front or the Faylaq al-Rahman, which was ISIS, used to be ISIS. Now they got on the bus and they went to northern Syria now.
Yeah, well, we'll get to what happened in Douma later on in this interview, and I know that you've always characterized those who took the rebellious stance against the Assad regime, you've always characterized them as terrorists going back to 2011. But it is interesting to note that opposition, human rights and civil rights organizations from the very beginning claimed that you were actually financing and arming supporters of Bashar al-Assad in Aleppo to try to take on and confront and to kill the demonstrators who were taking to the streets demanding democracy, going back to 2011.
Absolutely nonsense, because I played a very positive role in protecting demonstrators, and I helped a lot of demonstrators, not being arrested. But bear in mind, in Aleppo there was no violence at the time. There was nothing. I mean, we were the ones who witnessed violence against us from the early days, from the early hours, actually. We were against violence, and we are with demonstrations, as long as they are peaceful demonstrations, not demonstrations carrying weapons and RPGs, and demonstrations, you know, letting your beards grow, and chanting radical Qaeda slogans. Of course we will be against them. Yeah, I never supported anything, well, any crackdown of demonstrations at the time.
It's interesting then that as early as September 2011, the European Union slapped sanctions, personal targeted sanctions on you as a key supporter of the regime.
Yes. Yes, yes, they were putting everybody on sanctions. They put the whole Syrian people on sanctions.
No, they actually weren't putting everyone on sanctions. They put 4 of Syria's biggest businessmen on sanctions, and you were one of them.
Yes, exactly. Based on what? No evidence. When I spoke with the European Court, I said, show me any evidence, any hard proof evidence, not based on gossip, not based on your plan, you know, orchestrated plan to make us defect, to force us to defect against our country. Give us any evidence that we really paid 1 penny only to anyone to crack down demonstrations, to the army or to the state. They did not give us anything. It was just a political pressure on us to defect, to go to the other side. And guess what? We're not going to do that. At the time, you know, what happened in Eastern Aleppo, Stephen, was really tremendous. You know, please, let me finish this point. We have now documents that can put the British government in jail, my friend. We have documents that the Foreign Office financed through what's called the CSSF, the capability, the stability and, you know, conflict fund. 200 million pounds at the time in Aleppo went to what? Went to whom? Went to the Nusra Front.
The thing is, for the last 7 years, you've insisted that terror comes from those trying to remove President Assad from power. The truth is, you have become a defender of terror tactics, haven't you? Not least in your own city. Let's not forget you're an MP representing Aleppo. I just wonder, as the MP for Aleppo, how you felt about the consistent use of chlorine gas as a weapon by government forces during that offensive by the Assad military forces in the fall of 2016. How did you feel about that?
Look, Stephen, when are you guys going to really leave this rhetoric, this narrative, this really, old narrative that doesn't sell anymore? We never use chemical weapons. This is one. We were never against demonstrations.
I mean, you're entitled to say that, but all of the evidence suggests that the forces of Assad consistently used chemical weapons in 2016 during their offensive to wipe out the rebels in eastern Aleppo. And you know it's true. You've read the reports from Human Rights Watch, from the OPC.
No, it is not true.
Yeah, well, you may say it's not true, but the evidence is there.
The evidence is in front of me in the form of an OPCW, declaration that just a couple of months ago, my friend, in February 28, 2018, on talking about the same Jemaria and Barzeh facilities that were just targeted, and they're saying exactly. Did not indicate, the analysis of samples taken during the inspections did not indicate the presence of scheduled chemicals in the samples, and the inspection team did not observe any activities inconsistent with obligations under the convention during the second round of inspections at the Barzeh and Jemaria facilities. This is one.
Fares Shehabi, you're deliberately misunderstanding me. I'm saying the evidence is there on the ground in Aleppo. The OPCW has described more than 30 incidents between 2013 and now of chemical weapons used. Some of them clearly were in Aleppo, and the Human Rights Watch report, using extensive evidence from eyewitnesses, from photographs and from video, shows the pattern of chlorine attacks, shows they were closely coordinated with the overall military strategy of retaking Aleppo.
Look. Look, we do not consider your white helmets fabricated videos as being credible, and a proof of what I said is just what happened in Duma when everybody said the star kid of the video, Hassan Diab, 11 years old, he said there was no chemical attack. The staff hospital said there was no chemical attack. Robert Fisk said there's no chemical attack. Pearson Sharp and other Western journalists went there and they said there was no chemical attack. Everybody's saying there was no chemical attack, but you choose to believe white helmets who are Al-Qaeda civil arm. I don't know why.
There are so many inconsistencies in what you're saying. I can't unpick them all. But if you're going to cite Western journalists as misleading, then don't cite one Western journalist who happens to suit your opinion and tell me that's proof. The proof is going to be found, if there is indeed any conclusive proof, by the OPCW, who haven't even written their report yet. So you can't possibly tell me that you know what happened in Duma.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. No, actually, I can tell you what happened just 2 months ago in the same facilities. And I'm waiting for the OPCW report. And I can tell you what happened in eastern Aleppo, because we don't have chemical weapons. And how can we use chemical weapons on the population we're trying to liberate, one? When our troops are in the close proximity to, do we really have holy powers to protect, to really control the wind factor from all directions? This is Aleppo. It's a highly populated area. How could you use chemical weapons in a highly populated area? And bear in mind, Stephen, bear in mind, the first time chemical weapons were used, and we strongly believe they were used at the orders of some NATO countries, including Britain. They were used against our troops in 2013, and we submitted the claim to the Security Council in 2013, asking the Security Council to send an investigating team to Khan al-Asal in Aleppo, because we had 20+ soldiers were killed, plus many other civilians. And I went to the hospitals at the time.
Yeah, hang on. I just want to make this point. I guess in the end, people watching this around the world have to make a judgment as to the credibility of people like you who are saying chemical weapons were never used in Aleppo, Duma, or anywhere else. And then all of the evidence I can cite on the other side of the fence, from the OPCW, from Human Rights Watch, from Amnesty International, from different independent human rights organizations and governments, including the French government, the British and the American, all of whom contradict you. People have to make a decision. But when they make that decision, they judge you on your character. You are the man who, during that siege of 2016 in Aleppo, responded to the tweets of a 7-year-old girl, the girl who was tweeting about the suffering of her community, describing the barrel bombs. Bana al-Abed wrote, "Dear Assad, dear Putin, one day you will stand in front of God to answer for why you killed my friends." And you responded to that tweet by saying this on Twitter: "It is better this little witch die before she starts with her sponsors World War III." Where's your humanity? Where's your compassion?
Actually, Look. Where is your humanity when you use a 7-year-old girl and you give her a Twitter account and you abuse her and you make her like a puppet, an example, like you do with all of our kids, like you did with the kid Umran? Where was your humanity, the Western humanity, when you based lies on a kid named Umran and it turns out to be a big lie? And you do use the same. This is not a lie.
We know Bana al-Abed. We know her. She's been to meet President Erdogan in Turkey. She's been she's got 300,000
Do you know her father?
And you said, "Let this little witch die."
Oh, really?
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I never said let this. Look.
Yes,
please.
you did. It was a tweet, and you tried to delete it later, but you said it.
Okay, excellent. I call her a victim. She's a victim of your wicked practices. And when I respond to her tweets, I'm responding to the tweets of the intelligence services that writes her tweets. Bana al-Abed does not know how to speak English. How can she write tweets in perfect English? Please, give me a break. When I talk to anything about Bana al-Abed, we lost kids. We lost 11,000 of our civilians in eastern Aleppo, in Aleppo actually. third of which were kids. I have friends who lost kids.
Syria,
we care about our
Syria
kids,
has lost
but you use our kids to make points.
Syria has lost more than 500,000 people. Half of the entire country's population has had to flee its home. 5 or 6 million of them are now overseas, which brings me back to the point of you talking about victory and celebration and talking about the degree to which you think the government of Bashar al-Assad is going to restore the situation to one that you seem to believe can be just like it was before 2011. Do you seriously think that can happen in the context of the Syrian conflict?
My friend, this is not the government of Bashar al-Assad. This is not the Assad regime. Stop demonizing. Stop using the same tactics you use in Iraq and Libya. We are sick of this tactic. Come up with a new tactic, please. This is the country of Syria. We are defending ourselves. When 2 million people, when 500,000 refugees from eastern Aleppo live in my neighborhood, in our neighborhoods, in the western parts of Aleppo, for 4.5 years, and you call 70%, you're interrupting me. You are interrupting me, Stephen. You want me to speak like your language?
You're missing my point, Mr. Shehabi.
I'm not.
Hang on.
Look, we are not defending a president. We are not defending a person.
11 million people, at least, from your country, pretty much half your country's population, has had to flee its home. So when you say to me, this isn't about Bashar al-Assad, it's about Syria, the Syrian people defending themselves, half of the Syrian people have been forced to flee their homes. Your country is ruined. This conflict has ruined your country.
Ask the ones, listen to me, ask the ones who left. Why did they leave? And you will find that more than 90% of them left because they wanted to escape from jihadi terrorism that NATO supports. Please, when you have the Saudis and the Qataris, which are the most backward, radical regimes in the world, pouring money, pouring petrodollars and bringing 250,000 jihadi mercenaries to our country, this is what's going to happen to us. Exactly. I agree with you. We will have a huge tragedy. We will have big suffering. But at the end, we have to look at the causes. Look, we are saying we are with democratic elections. We want reform. We want drastic reform. We want improvement. We want liberty. We want democracy. But who's going to give us democracy? Jihadi radicalism going to give us democracy?
Mr. Shehabi,
who said we're not defending Assad? We are defending secular Syria.
All right. And I'm sure you believe in the values of compassion and humanity. So let's get back to compassion and humanity. You've just told me that you believe 90% of those Syrians who've been forced to flee their homes did so because they were fearful of terror. Then how can you explain to me that it is compassionate and humane for the Syrian government to pass a new law, that is, I think the law known as Law 10, which will see all of those who don't present their property deeds to local officials, law enforcement officials, by the 10th of May, all of them who can't do that by the 10th of May will see their homes confiscated. Now, you know as well as I do that millions of them don't even live in Syria anymore.
This is nonsense. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. I have many people, I have not heard of such law, and I'm a member of the parliament.
You haven't heard of this law?
We have my city itself.
This is a law.
No. I never heard of this law.
This is a law which the Syrian government has
law
enacted.
Number 10.
And by May 10th, all citizens are required.
Nonsense.
Well,
absolutely nonsense.
If Aleppo is peaceable now, stable, calm, and respectful, as you describe it, how many people who left eastern Ghouta have returned? Eastern Aleppo, rather, have returned?
About 1 million.
Have returned?
About 1 million, and I wonder how come. Yes, I tell you, the eastern parts of Aleppo. Look.
You see, I read an AP, an Associated Press description of Aleppo recently, which described how the eastern half of the city remains in ruins. And I confess I haven't been to Aleppo for a long time. But the reporter said...
people returned.
The reporter said the eastern half remains in ruins. Its streets have been cleared of rubble, but there's little sign of rebuilding. Some residents have trickled back, but hundreds of thousands have still not returned to their homes in the east of the city.
Yes, I give you numbers. I can give you numbers, and I invite you to go there yourself. You know, why don't you organize a fact-finding mission of independent journalists and activists, and you can go to Douma, and you can go to eastern parts of Aleppo, and you can see for yourself. Don't take my words. You know, they said that the Syrian army is killing the civilians of eastern parts of Aleppo, and we have 250,000 of them. Actually, turned out that only around 114,000 were there at the times of the liberation. Only 15,000 left in the green buses, which are the Islamic Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda fanatics. The rest remained in eastern parts of Aleppo. For 2 years now, we have 700,000 to 800,000 newcomers to eastern parts of Aleppo. And I wonder, why did the Western media's interest in eastern part of Aleppo suddenly dropped, suddenly stopped after the liberation? Didn't you care about the civilians of eastern parts of Aleppo?
And that's why I
chemical weapons were being used on them.
From 2 months ago. 2 months ago, the eyewitness report I quoted saying that while there's been a trickle of people back, hundreds of thousands have not returned to their homes. But anyway, let's because we don't have much time. I've heard what you've said on that issue. Let's talk about something else. You say that you are not a defender of Assad in person. You're simply a defender of the nation, the sovereignty of Syria.
Yes.
In that case, would you welcome?
Yes.
Everybody
Everybody else.
Bashar al-Assad facing war crimes charges after all of the evidence gathered together by the international, independent, impartial mechanism team working under the auspices of the UN, which says it now has an overwhelming volume of evidence, including testimony, images and videos documenting atrocities committed by both the government and the anti-government forces. Would you welcome Bashar al-Assad one day facing a court?
Of course not, because we don't trust your evidence, we don't trust your mechanisms, and we don't trust your so-called international bodies here, there, and right, left, and center. When you call Qaeda civil arms the rescuers, and when you call jihadis with long red beards, when you call them moderate rebels, how can we trust you? And I pose the same question to you. After everybody now knows with hard proof evidence that Theresa May lied to the British people and launched an attack, violated international law, wasted money, launched an attack based on a hoax. Would you put her in jail? Would you put Tony Blair in jail after admitting he made a mistake by killing 1 million Iraqi citizens? Would you put Trump in jail or Obama in jail by admitting to kill thousands and thousands and thousands of civilians in Raqqa? Why does laws only apply to us? We are the ones who will judge our leaders, our presidents, our members of parliament. And bear in mind, no one put me in the parliament. 200,000 of my people elected me. Are you telling me that those 200,000 people are all brainwashed and all don't know really what's going on, and they should have listened to CNN or BBC or to other media and get their idea about me or about people like me?
I guess
we were surrounded by the same people you put on the terror lists.
What I'm asking you is whether you really seriously think that there can be peace, stability, and ultimately democracy in Syria under Bashar al-Assad.
I believe this all can happen once NATO countries, and especially the United States and UK and France, move their hands off my country, leave us alone, and end the flood of terrorism, and stop intervening in our affairs. We've been living in peace, and we were the 4th safest country in the world for 17 or 15 years before this aggression on us in 2011. Didn't we live in peace and prosperity at the time? We did. And whether Assad remains in power or not, that's up to us. We decide whether he will be judged, he will remain a president, he will lose presidency based on ballot boxes. Isn't that what democracy is all about? But show me, tell me, how can we really practice democracy in this condition when we have these jihadis around us and everywhere, and you support them? How can we do? How can we reform? How can we move forward? We have to end terrorism first.
Fares Shehabi, we have run out of time, but I thank you for joining me on Hard Talk.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.